The Treatise of Wisdom, Part 1, The Scroll of Knowledge, by Edward Styler, Chapter 4. They were chasing him through town and forest. They are relentless, tireless, but he feels no fear. He knows he will not be caught. A vast sea stretches before him. A small boat is moored to a tree growing out of the water. He raises the sail, and it is off at once. A breeze carries him rapidly across still water, which is unaffected by both wind and the boat cutting through it. Still they are following. An island rises vertically out of the blue water, a mass of trees clinging precariously to its tall, rocky cliffs. He climbs a ladder that goes straight up above his boat and into the overhanging floor of a wood house perched on the cliff among the trees. An old man is here, sitting on the floor in ragged shorts. The old man looks up, then over to a rotating shaft which pierces the roof and is driven by a great canvas windsail. He runs through the maze of the house until he is on the other side of the towering island. He stands on a wooden deck looking down at the water far below him. He hears running feet on wooden planks. He looks back, then jumps. He feels the fall, lives it, grasps to every sense it evokes. He knows when the fall ends he will be dead. "No!" shouts his mind. The fall does not end. He is standing on the sea far away. He looks at his feet. They are bare. The sole is just breaking the surface of the water. He takes a step, then another. He finds walking across the water is effortless. He feels that he is not held up by his feet, but suspended by his mind. He walks on. He looks around him. The sea is endless, is without a single ripple. The mirror surface reflecting every color of a rainbow sky with a richness beyond imagination. The back of a black whale rolls above the surface, exhales a fine, misty display, and continues rolling until it disappears again beneath the water. The passing of the whale causes no ripple to disturb his feet. He finds himself standing on a rock, resembling exactly the round, black back of the whale. He feels immeasurable peace. Sleep does not exist. Wake does not exist. Time, mind, body blend into one and are both nothing and everything. He stands straight and motionless, arms at his side, eyes glazed over, not seeing, not blinking. He falls sideways, body still straight, arms still at his side. He is about to hit the water. He does not try to catch himself. He stops in midair. His body is hovering horizontal just above the water's reflection. His mind wakes up and takes in everything. The water world disappears, and a new one replaces it. Moss lay there in his bed, remembering every detail of his dream and the feel of his mind as it carried his body over water and air. He lay there for some time, enveloped in a womb of downed pillows and blankets. He hovered between dream and the immediate world, meditating on his experience. His conscious mind had definitely been pulled into the dream. He could remember every detail of the world as if he had actually been there. The sights, the sounds, the smells, the feel of the place were as real as the bed he lay in. The only difference was that he knew it was a dream, even as it was happening. He knew it was not real, yet it was somehow beyond real. Was it actually another place? Did his body and mind, even now, exist in two different planes? He did not know. He could not figure it out. As he worked his mind, searching for answers, the memory began to fade. He tried to pursue it, but only succeeded in waking himself up completely. He lazily stepped out of bed and rubbed his face through his hands. He had left the window open to let the heat of the day out while he slept. It was now cool on his skin. The sun was setting. He stood and looked at the goosebumps rising over his body as the breeze from his movements chilled him. He found some warm clothes and made his way to the bathhouse, all the while reveling in the anticipation of his midnight rendezvous. By the time the stars told him it was time to head to the beach, he was clean, well-fed, and warm in his sheepskin coat. His breath came out in lazy tendrils of vapor, coiling out behind him as he walked through the outer court of the fortress and down the time-worn flagstone stairs to the west beach. The slow surf washed his mind clear as he stepped across the soft sand. Further up the beach, he saw the silhouette of Floating Rock, a featureless shadow against the sparkling night sky. He saw firelight illuminating the far side of its base, and he quickened his pace. As he rounded the tall rock, he was momentarily startled. 2 figures sat at the fire. He had expected Rain to be alone. They looked up at him, and he was startled again to see Aimleth's face. Both of the women smiled at him. "Please join us, Moss," Rain said to him, motioning to a round rock by the fire. "Have you been waiting long?" he asked Rain, while looking inquisitively at Aimleth. "No, not long," Rain replied, noticing his questioning looks and smiling to herself. "Have some tea." There was a pot sitting on the ring of stone surrounding the fire. She handed him a cup and he thanked her, pouring himself some tea after offering some to the women. "I feel, Moss, that there is something very special at work inside you," Rain said. "Your dreams are a rare gift. It is important that you learn the meaning behind them. I know of someone who can help you understand. He is a very skilled dreamer and a traveler on the path." She paused for a sip of tea. "What path is that?" asked Moss. "The path to understanding the fundamental truths. It just so happens that Aimleth can also seek guidance where you are to travel. She will accompany you. I feel that you will be able to help each other to greater understanding." Aimleth's eyes smiled over her teacup. She almost looked mischievous. "Travel? Fundamental truths? What do you mean? Where am I going? What about my watch duty?" asked Moss, surprised by this unplanned shift in his future. "I am sailing for Cavrock in 1 week. The man you are going to see lives there. Be ready for a lengthy absence at that time. I will seek you out and we will leave together. Do not worry about your duties from now on. I will clear the 2 of you of them indefinitely. In the meantime, you must arrange your affairs and pack whatever it is you feel you may want. You will have no need of food nor gold, and I advise you to pack light, no more than you can easily carry on your person. Now, I have other affairs to attend to, so I bid you a pleasant night and a constructive week." Aimleth made no motion to get up as Rain left them, so Moss topped up their cups and they sat there, on opposite sides of a small fire, each reflecting inwards. Moss flipped a couple of twigs into the fire. He had butterflies in his stomach, but he was unsure as to whether they were from excitement or fear. He had never traveled all that much within his own country, let alone to another, to Cavrock of all places, reputed to be rather seedy and barely neutral. Looking up, he saw Aimleth's eyes on him, peering over her cup as she drank, still with that smiling look in her eyes. What was her part in this? Why wasn't she saying anything? In spite of his easygoing nature, he was flustered by her mannerisms. "I don't know whether to feel frightened or honored," he said, breaking the silence between them. "Either emotion could drive you to foolish actions," she replied. "Have you traveled much? What should I bring? Do you have any idea of how long we will be gone?" worry of the unknown began setting in. She smiled at him as if he were a child asking why the sky was blue. "I'll help you pack," was all she said. Softfoot sat alone at his desk, going over reports of the past week's security issues. He found himself having to read and reread each passage as his mind wandered and his eyes skimmed over the words without comprehension. Realizing the reports were a lost cause, he restacked them and retired from his desk, seeking refuge from his scattered thoughts. He rubbed his eyes, stretched his arms and back, and sat down on his meditation mat. He closed his eyes and slowly shut off his external senses, gradually giving his mind free rein to go where it would. His moment of insight at the feast began to manifest itself. Then, simultaneously, so did Rain's warnings and his talk with Amelith. Elusive wisps of inkling, the overmind, dangers, building since the first. The words interlaced and dissolved into images. The people of Fjord Harbor's Eye went about their daily patterns. He separated his mind from them, stood still in time, and their actions blurred as if he were looking at an anthill with his eyes unfocused. The actions of a person became a cycle. The actions of people became a cycle. The combined cycles became a cycle. Cycles changed with time as the people and the nations changed, ever facing new challenges, ever adapting. He sensed that a common force drove all the cycles. The images raced faster and faster. Time rushed backward and forward. Everything blurred into one colossal entity, the overmind of humanity. Its driving force was right there, dictating its every motion. He could sense that force. It was hovering on the perimeter of his mind. He tried to grasp it. It slipped further away. He regained the thought. He slipped further from his core, opened his mind further, detaching from himself further. Further. Knock, knock. "Softfoot, are you in there?" The disturbance brought Softfoot back to the immediacy of the mundane world. "Curse you, Firehand!" Softfoot called out. "Come!" The door opened and Firehand peered through the opening before stepping into the room. "What's the matter?" he asked. He saw Softfoot rising from his meditation position. "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Shall I leave you?" "I'm sure whatever you have to say is important," Softfoot said with more than a hint of sarcasm. "I'm sure it is too," replied Firehand. "Moss of the Tower's Eyes will no longer be participating in watch duty, and similarly with Amelith and her duties, at the request of Rain, effective immediately." Firehand arched an eyebrow. Softfoot narrowed his eyes. "At the request of Rain? What is her purpose?" "It seems that Moss and Amelith are to accompany Rain to Cavrock next week. Rain didn't elaborate on the matter any more than that, but she was very persuasive and very serious." Softfoot sat down at his desk and leaned back in his chair thoughtfully. Moss and Amelith. What does she want them for? Why Cavrock? Did she say nothing that would give you some insight? All she said about the matter was that it was in the best interest of Highland for them to go. By the tone of her voice, I quite believed her. "Will you be sending a watcher with them?" asked Softfoot. "I thought of that, however I decided against it. Rain would surely find out. I don't want her thinking ill of us," Firehand replied. "Yes, you're probably right. Thank you for informing me. If you have any more thoughts on this, please tell me." Firehand took the cue. "Yes, I will do that," he said, heading for the door. "Oh, and sorry for barging in on you." Softfoot opened a desk drawer and pulled out the Tower's Eye watch schedule. Why Moss? It made sense for Rain to be interested in Amelith, but Moss? He recalled seeing the two of them talking with each other on a few occasions. Were they collaborating on something? Did they both walk the path? Somehow he couldn't see it in Moss. He seemed too ordinary. It couldn't be coincidence that Rain's warning coincided with this. He crossed Moss off the schedule and switched a few names, then called for his runner to notify them. He tapped his pen thoughtfully on the page where Moss's name lay hidden beneath the ink.